Hi, I'm John Hibbins, and this is the Metaverse Show. You can find us on Roomkey, YouTube, or your favourite podcast provider. And this is episode 1. And today I'm joined by my co-host, Steve Wright.
Hello.
And my other co-host, Anthony Smith.
Hello.
And our special guest today is Sam Watts from Make Real. Welcome
Hi,
to the
everyone.
show, Sam. Welcome, Sam. So, I want to start with a big question. What got you into VR, Sam?
What got me into VR? As a young lad, going to the London Trocadero Centre in the 90s, strapping on a virtuality machine and playing Dactyl Nightmare, realising that despite this horrendously clunky, nauseating experience, that this was ultimately our sci-fi future dreams of being able to transport people to another world believably. And then thinking, well, forgetting about it or trying to work on it at university, trying out caves in Manchester, and then like many, when Palmer Luckey and the Oculus Rift DK1 came along, backing the Kickstarter, getting the rewards, and again feeling quite sick in the Tuscany demo.
Did you back that personally then, Sam? You're one of the early Kickstarters.
Convinced the company that I joined to back a couple of units. We thought getting 2 made sense because ultimately it's all about social and it's all about multi-user. So we wanted to make sure straight away we could explore that rather than just having one headset. But it was a fantastic experience, and it gave us that sort of insight into what could be possible and where the technology was going. Suddenly you didn't need very high-end computers with very low spec, sort of military, very expensive type headsets. And suddenly with Unity and a fairly cheap computer, anybody could have and anybody could build VR, really.
Yeah, I think we follow a similar story there. That Trocadero, I've been on the Trocadero Centre's the Nightmares thing, but at the time I was at college in Nottingham, and that same company was developing the software out of Nottingham, so they had 2 show units. And the one that they had there was more of like an adventure game that they were building in literally in the back room. They were like in the back room. You'd go a week later. You'd go. Yeah, you go. Sorry for that, Anthony. Yeah, you go a week later, and there'd be an extra room to go through. It'd be like £5 an hour or something. It's amazing. But yeah, no, the whole journey there. I mean, it was quite a long time between that old equipment and the DK1. If it wasn't for being brought back with Palmer Luckey, it may never have happened at all.
Explain the Trocadero.
Yeah, but then I think that's what a lot of people forget or don't realise. They think VR is a new thing, but ultimately we're the 4th wave or 4th attempt really now, and it's not a new technology. So when you see world's first blah 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 in VR, quite often it's not.
No, exactly. It's been around for such a long time. I mean, way before that Trocadero Centre one, I think Disney were doing stuff. I wish we had Kevin Williams here now to talk about. He's agreed to be on the show later, so we'll get it from the horse's mouth. But yeah, I mean, it's been around for a long time in concept with these giant. I mean, even that one in Trocadero, it was a big old heavy unit, wasn't it? Supported from some spindle above you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining. I mean, I was in my early years when you guys are talking about this. I'm imagining something that looks a bit like the Spaceballs helmet. Is that pretty accurate as to what that thing was? Because I have no point of reference for.
I wouldn't say exactly. I mean, if anything, the VR head is closer to the Spaceballs helmet, and that was a fairly recent headset.
Where did that go? Yeah. So, I mean, there's no.
I don't know.
Doubt.
I think everyone secretly wanted that to be a success. But...
well, it was secretly. It was like an iPad in a headset, wasn't it? I mean, that was basically its thing. It was like I don't know how. Yeah, it obviously was a tough competition in DK1. So okay, so you've got the DK1. They all arrived. It was all plain sailing. Nice early SDKs all worked out for you. Give us your story because you were working on
everything
gaming straight away, weren't you? Yeah.
I mean, you have to remember this was early days. Well, not early days of Unity, but comparatively. And whilst they have been working directly with Oculus to get the SDKs ready for shipping of the DK1s, this is still V1 of the early SDKs, and was it Unity 4. I think 4.6 was the main one we were using at the time. And there was a lot of changes, and the technology advanced pretty rapidly, going from DK1 to DK2 and going from Unity 4.6 to 5, etc., changing all the lighting, various features that people didn't know or didn't think were necessary at the time. If you think of the early videos and mirroring of DK1 experiences where you could see both eyes, and whilst that's like the sort of easiest, straightforward computational way of showing what's in the headset, it's not a great audience experience. And exploring and enabling single pass mirroring and having one eye stretched across what you'd expect to normally see within a window on a monitor. But we did a lot of explorations, and thankfully one of our early clients at the time, who we were building web content for, they saw the DK1 and they didn't really know how they could use it at the time. Like most of our clients even today, we still have to do a lot of education in terms of how VR could actually benefit them, rather than just ticking an innovation box for them. But they were launching in China, and they wanted an experience that would draw people to their booth and make a big noise. And so we created a 4-player network racing game on one that was in China for a week in early March 2014. It was so popular, it was that they were threatening on having their booth shut down every day. The queues were so long, and I don't know the full legitimacy of this, but potentially this might have been the first time VR was in China. I don't know.
So, I mean, what you're referring to there is Radial G. I think we can.
What became Radial G? Yeah.
Quick video. Just excuse me while I'm doing that. Might not be amazing performance with video here, but at least we can have a little look. That was the first time I met you, actually, Sam, wasn't it? I mean, you took that out on the road in the UK a lot, and I think almost at an similar time was doing Crystal Rift, so I was out at most of the same events as you. That's where we really met. I mean, amazing times, right? We probably did the first OC Oculus Connects then as well. Was that around that time?
Yeah, I never got to go until OC3, so I missed a lot of the early sort of community building stuff. I missed the VR beach house, etc. But I was there in spirit, online, and obviously very, very happy when the very first OC there was, or second OC, there was the Radial G logo on stage next to Nate, when they were talking about CV1, etc. But yeah, we learned a lot from that, especially in terms of comfort, because as the video shows there, it's very fast. You're spinning the world around 360 degrees very quickly, but ultimately, there's a number of design considerations that we learned and iterated upon to make it super comfortable. I think we've demoed it, thousands of times now, and still track less than 1% of people who've had to stop within the first 20 seconds just because it's too much.
Do you find that a lot of that comfort's now been solved with the latest technology?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of lessons to be learned there in terms of what makes a comfortable experience, but I'm just writing a blog post at the moment about VR comfort, and if you think back to the DK1 days, it was 3 DOF. The screen resolution wasn't very high. The frame rate, the refresh was only like 60 hertz, and it took a few iterations to get to those levels, sort of 90 hertz, much higher screen resolutions, much lower latencies, photon to motion, etc., to make VR technically comfortable. And these days, whilst some people will still feel ill, I think a lot of it does come down to the design. But if you think about the early experiences and publishing on certain platforms, there was a lot of emphasis on whether your title was comfortable or intense, how you described it, showcasing demos and having to have disclaimers visible, health warnings telling people to take the headset off. And there's some recent research that comes out showing that actually it's that nocebo effect. It's saying to someone, VR might make you feel sick, therefore take the headset. That's planting a negative seed, and that actually makes them feel more sick than what if you'd not said anything at all.
Yeah, I think I agree, and I think I do think there's an element now of people that do experience. I mean, I don't call it VR sickness. I don't think I've ever witnessed anybody be actually sick. It's just a nausea. It's
Yeah.
like feeling like you've been slightly poisoned or you've eaten something wrong. But yeah, there's still an element of new people getting used to, especially high locomotion. But there are so many things you can do, and the hardware's so much better, isn't it? I mean, it typically keeps frame rate. I think stores have done a lot to help as well, because they make sure that the stuff that's submitted to the stores is good VR, which really helps.
Yeah, I mean, these days a lot of it comes down to technical performance of the actual experience itself. Making sure that it's fully hitting that native refresh rate without dropping frames. The design in terms of locomotion and how you move around. But then we moved away from a lot of the seated experiences tracking just your head to a lot of free roaming, completely untethered, high accuracy one-to-one physical mapping to your virtual vision, which has just made things a lot easier. And there's a lot of argument about whether VR legs like sea legs exist, but I think certainly for a first timer it's best to go in at the shallow end and get used to the all-encompassing experience of being in VR, having your senses taken over, than perhaps diving straight in at the deep end and getting a bit carried away with it all. But then that all feeds back into, as creators, when we're demoing to people, it makes it really difficult, because we're still we're probably down to what, 6 or 7 out of 10 people probably never tried VR. Obviously more people have tried it, but when they take the headset off, was that amazing experience they had, was that VR or was that your experience?
I think I've had a lot more success onboarding people into VR when the experience that they've had has been the sort of embodiment that they have inside the experience is more humanoid, and more directly aligned to what they would experience in the real world. So like people who I've put into experiences where it's like completely fantastical and totally off the wall tend to have more of an issue acclimatizing themselves to VR, compared to when you put them into an experience that is gentler but also that has more of a human embodiment in the avatar itself. I know, I've got like 2 or 3 good friends who claimed to have VR sickness and had tried VR and wouldn't try it again, but they'd also, their first experience had been in like very, I would say, aggressive experiences, like arcade type experiences that really are kind of bombarding your senses. Whereas if you put somebody into, I don't know, a photogrammetry thing or something that's a bit more gentle, then it tends to ease them in a lot better, and then they can progress a lot more quickly and a lot more easily into having sort of full VR legs.
Yeah, I mean, I think these days there's such a wide content, a wide library of content available that that there's a range of experiences for a range of audience types, and you can talk to people to sort of determine what you think would be best as their first time experience. And we you think back to the sort of the early days of sort of 7-8 years ago, there was a lot of emphasis on VR for gaming, which put a lot of people off because people just didn't want to play games. And as we know, VR is for so much more than just gaming. And then there's the look and the feel of the headsets. But yeah, as you say, I think you just have to judge the audience. But what is good is that we're still building that diverse and inclusive range of creators to make that diverse and inclusive range of content to appeal to a diverse and inclusive range of audiences, which will ultimately help it just continue to flourish and grow.
And watching you along many years now go from that early gaming and then Make Real, I mean, it's just a fascinating explosion in that space. But I think from the outside, excuse me for the detail, but Make Real does serious games, training exercises, and serious VR for that. Do you want to quickly introduce what Make Real does and how you would pitch that to somebody?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, Make Real ultimately is an immersive content studio. Our moniker is Serious Fun, which essentially maps to the 70% of our focus, which is the serious, the enterprise, the training side of things. And then the 30% of the gaming, installation, in and out of home experiences and physical installations that we do. And then those bleed into each other. So we make learning that is fun, but also has a very serious outcome. The science shows that when people are engaged and enjoying the learning, they're taking it in and they're actually keeping the knowledge more. On top of the potential benefits that doing training in VR brings. But ultimately, the VR market is tiny, and trying to you can either make games that the sort of market wants, but then you'll just end up making probably a rhythm action shooter, or our approach, which was creating the games and the prototypes that gave us public experiences that we could showcase and make noise about, which got us the attention and access to dev kits and prototypes, which we could then research and develop concepts for enterprise, where in a fledgling marketplace, working as an agency works in a profitable way. But that's not to say, we've been doing it, we've been creating immersive training content since 2009, essentially, with the first, we can call it a mixed reality, really, construction site simulation installed in Coventry and in Melbourne, where we have a job projection screen that essentially is like VR, because the screen is so big, 15 meters parabolic screen, that it fills your vision much like VR does. But that was 2009, before VR was a viable, cost-effective alternative. But what we learned from making the games and comfort and input, which Radio G taught us a lot about comfort, and then creating Logo Dojo, the early touch title, that taught us a lot about what works with tracked input. That then feeds back into our learning experience design and what makes good training and more, what makes effective training.
So, I mean, it's how many projects have you now done with Make Real? Is it like in the tens and dozens of?
In terms of things that we have deployed that fit within the immersive scale, from 3D mobile to AR to VR to motion platforms to full flight simulators, since I've been there, I think I noted that we've delivered over 100 immersive experiences.
Whoa.
About a year and a half ago.
I think that deserves a clap. I mean, apart from anything, how do you deliver 100 awesome? Because I mean, looking at the content, there's one thing I know about Make Real and you and your team, Sam, is that you are, incredibly good VR developers, and and that actually comes with a lot of praise because it's really hard. I know this from being a developer, it's really hard to do good VR. The details matter, the scale matters, every little ounce of optimization really matters. How do you deliver 100 of them?
Well, it starts with having really good clients who are willing and able to go on that experiential journey with you, to what's possible. And EDF Energy is a great example of that. They've been with us since 2014. We delivered on Vive for them first, and then Gear VR, and they've explored HoloLens, mobile AR, physical installations, and it was a good timing because it was around their new digital centre of learning excellence, and they wanted to explore, how these immersive technologies can improve training across the board for everyone, from engineers to installation to call centres to every facet of working within EDF and Hinkley Point C. And then similarly, Lloyds Bank, we've spoken to them, we met them at many events, and it was they were interested in and intrigued by VR, but didn't really know how VR would benefit them, and we didn't have an answer for them either. But we worked with them to create a prototype of an early soft skills demo in 2017, 2018, based on 5 minutes of their traditional soft skills training material. And from that, they use that as an internal demonstrator to build stakeholder engagement and then get the buy-in internally to have a bigger budget to try something bigger. And we went from 15 lines of dialogue in a branching narrative, sort of Bandersnatch style, to 150 for the first sort of full project, to something like 1,500 for the second project, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's ultimately building up that trust and relationship with your clients to enable them to understand what it is that you can do for them, but at the same time go on that journey together of discovery, and not bullshit them really, because it is a gold rush time. There's a lot of people out there saying a lot of very sort of high level blanket statements around the benefits of VR, and it's a case of ensuring that you're open and honest and transparent about what it can and can't do. But yeah, in terms of actual delivery, we've grown from 4 people when I joined to we're now about 35, I think, full time. Plus we have about 10 contractors and freelancers on board at any time, and we typically have 6 or 7 projects on the go at once, and the average project is probably about 2 to 3 months from sign off to discovery to design to development to deployment. But then
Wow.
deployment isn't just handing over a box of, it's going with them and doing facilitation and training the trainers and making sure they're super comfortable with using the hardware. So ultimately, we make the VR disappear and they can focus on the training and the outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, you're painting a true success story. I mean, presumably it's working. I mean, I think all the evidence shows that training in VR is better outcome than doing it in real life. Is that true?
I mean, yeah, as a blanket statement, but you still have to validate those use cases. You always have to ask yourself, why VR? And a lot of companies come to us and they say, we want VR. And it's like, well, why? And they're like, don't know. Because our competitors are using it, or because I've got an innovation tick box to use, or I've seen it and it looks cool. So it's a case of working with them to understand what actually is their business objective or their learning objectives, what are their learning outcomes that they're struggling to deliver, what particular areas of their training are typically, underperforming. What is it that VR could actually bring or add to that particular training need? And then taking that, we become SMEs or subject matter experts, doing lots of courses, and we've got a fridge full of random certificates that our learning designers have undertaken to become SMEs to be able to create content for it. Building those experiences that focus on those key interactions and those key learning outcomes to actually deliver that meaningful content.
So you actually go and become an expert in the job in order to write the training. Did I get that right?
Yeah. I mean, we work. Our learning designers work with their training team and their SMEs, but where possible, we will go on a course. So when we were working with Vodafone about working at height, our designers went to the training telephone mast and learned how to climb a telephone mast 25 meters. So
Hang on a minute, you asked a dev had to go out and climb a telephone mast to build it and get the understanding of it. That's amazing.
Yeah, make sure that the replication of climbing that we were creating in VR was authentic.
Yeah.
Unless you know how to climb, then you can't really do that.
Wow, that's amazing. Are there any particular projects that are standouts for you, super successful and just really interesting from a learning point of view?
I mean, it's not necessarily from a learning point of view, and it's a bit of an oldie and a goodie now, but the food steps campaign we worked on with McDonald's UK, we created a competitive multiplayer potato harvesting simulator. And those are words that you never thought you'd heard string together.
Well, when's that coming out on the Quest?
It's Rift only at the moment, but
I think you've got sleeper hit there. A lot of people are playing Power Wash Simulator at the moment and really want that in VR. So it's like Potato Simulator. It sounds pretty similar.
Maybe enough time has passed that we could really. But that the media event day for that was May 2016. And we built it around Oculus Rift CV1, which, as you know, Oculus Rift CV1 launched on March the 26th or 28th, 2016, but you couldn't buy them for love nor money because they were out of stock, and pre-orders were backdated. I think we got our actual retail units sort of around June or July, so we had to get special permission to be allowed to use EVTs for that media day, but from a challenge perspective, that was fantastic because this was back in the days of tethered PCs and VR, PC VR. We had 3 gaming rigs in a truck in a field in the English countryside, running off a generator experience where people sat outside to do the experience in the sunshine with a Rift and a sensor and the farming simulator steering wheel and pedals, and it had to be super smooth. It had to be performant to make sure that people were enjoying the experience and they weren't getting nauseous. So from a challenge perspective, that was delivery. But I think, in terms of stuff we're most proud of now, it has to be around soft skills, because we're just seeing with embodiment and putting people in the shoes of others, it's just really, really powerful in VR and vastly improves traditional soft skills training, which isn't, it's very subjective in the feedback. It's not generally consistent. It costs a lot of money if you've got actors. and the tools that we've built around our branching narrative system and our low-cost actor capture from sort of humans to animating 3D avatars with low-cost tools and having good facial and lip sync and body motion is, you know, it's really working wonders, and it does everything that I want VR to be, which is about enabling positive behavioural change.
Wow, that's amazing. And so the studio, you're doing literally hundreds of different applications for the serious fun and the training space, and then you also make games because you made Loco Dojo. Do you want to tell us the story of Loco Dojo and how that came to be and where it is today?
Yeah. So after Radial G, we decided that we wanted to make a game that was a bit less moody, a bit less sci-fi, and a bit more fun, and a bit more silly, and a bit more multiplayer. Radial G does have multiplayer elements, but it was after that toy box demo with the early sort of touch demos up at Oculus, where sharing a space with somebody is so much more powerful when you actually have avatars, that we created a prototype and we put it in front of Oculus, and they liked it enough to help fund it through the Indie Dev Grant. And then for that, with a team of, well, 6 essentially, 4 full-time, 4 part-time developers over 6 months, we scoped it out and, you know, built this polished touch experience that is just, you know, batshit cap fun. And we have a thing called Punt of the Week, and the Punt of the Week for this was, well, wouldn't it be great if Brian Blessed was the voice of the Grand Sensei? So we found his agent, emailed him, made an offer, and lo and behold, after 4 hours of agreed VO time later, we had Brian Blessed voicing the character. And it was early 2017 that we launched. Later on, we then did a Steam version, and whilst it's been good for the studio and we love it, it's been a difficult one to market, and yeah, we've had a lot of delays over the past few years since sort of stopping and starting PlayStation VR versions, stopping and starting Quest versions, and we just before Christmas we got the green light to go on the Oculus Quest store as Loco Dojo Unleashed, which is a fully enhanced version of Loco Dojo. With
What's the
more
difference
single
there
player
then?
and more multiplayer modes.
Is it just more
Ultimately,
levels?
it's just at this stage, it's the same 16 mini games, but it's how you access them and how they work is the main difference. But we've always had a desire to release more themed mini games, have abilities to chop and change the board, and you know, this is all future planning. But the game was always designed. It was signed off and designed to be a multiplayer game. It was only sort of right before launch that it was suggested that we should have some single player elements in there. So we got the solo challenge mode in, which is essentially a form of a tutorial, but a number of people still really struggled with mastering some of the mini games. So we've reworked the solo challenge mode is now 10 trials test, and you have 10 spins to try and get a black headband. But now we have solo dojo mode where you can actually choose each mini game yourself to master it, and then when you unlock or when you achieve certain trophies, you unlock the next tier of 4 mini games until you've got them all unlocked. And if you get 2 gold trophies in a tier, you unlock one of the masks. If you get all 4 gold trophies, you unlock one of the special new masks. because all the masks are based on the animals of the Chinese zodiac, but we only ever had 4 in, and the 4 to make 12 were always missing. So we've managed to get that in. But then also they decided to make things more easy for people to find a game. The main single multiplayer mode that we had before is now the table of trials, which takes 50 minutes to an hour. Ensure that there's a quicker, faster turbies available. We have a quick match mode, which you choose the mini game you want to play. You've got 4 rounds, and it's the person who scores the most out of those 4 rounds is the victor. And then you can go back, and obviously there'll be more likely for people to join, and then you won't have people hopefully complaining that they can't find games to join.
So, as I understand it, you're in the last terms and conditions before releasing the bug testing phase. How close are we to the Quest version?
We don't have, unfortunately for the very first edition of your show, you're not going to get the scoop of the release date. But it's not very far away. So it will be good that the Quest will be back in stock with the 128 gig version by the end of the month, ahead of our expected launch date.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I think all of those, I mean, the stores have become really, really good at making sure you've got everything in place, and it's super mature now. And I mean, PlayStation, I particularly felt a pinch when you mentioned PlayStation there, because I don't think most people really understand just how many terms and conditions there are for the PlayStation Store. It's like if you were to download and print the PDF, it's like a volume of an encyclopedia, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you've got all your TRCs that you have to meet, and then those are just platform ones. Then you've got the VR specific ones. The PSVR build is essentially ready for QA, but we had some comfort feedback to work out, and then it's just technical multiplayer performance, and it's just a case of finding the right time and the right person to do the work when it makes most financial sense. But now that we've done all the work for Quest, and done all the optimizations and got it running silky smooth on Quest, and that's Quest 1. Quest 2 is just a bonus. Then we can in the future go back and look at the other platforms about bringing them up to speed. One of the things that we can't do, just from a finance point of view, is go back and update all of the versions of Unity for all the PC VR versions so that they all do crossplay and all work seamlessly together around the Quest launch. So Loco Dojo Unleashed is a Quest only title at this time, but never say never. Hopefully the much larger user base and a much better preparedness for launch will ensure greater success, and bring in the revenues that will allow us to go back and bring those other platforms back up to speed
and make some more games. I'm excited to see what you do next.
Yeah.
Talking about headsets and releasing on platforms. Sorry, I was gonna say I found this great picture of you. I couldn't find the one where you started off balancing them on your head. I mean, I remember back in the DK1 days where you were like put one on your head and then another one on your head and then another one, and I think that probably got out of hand at some point. And now we've literally got a photo over here. This is great, by the way. I love the fact you do this, of a lot of headsets, to say the least.
I think there's a newer version.
I haven't even got the latest version. What's the one with grass on it?
I think I've got like 65 or something.
Oh my! Well, I did see that you've got the one with grass on it. This one up here. What's?
Ah, right. That's That's the Feast Through the Eyes of Animals installation headset, which is it's a DK2 inside.
Right.
Because it's a fairly old experience now.
Actually, I quite love looking at this one.
Through the Eyes of Animals is I can't remember whether Go content still works on Quest or not, but I highly recommend it. It's a very nice point cloud experience.
It's quite a nice retrospective look at this early one anyway. I mean, there's definitely a few there have disappeared now. OSVR, that sadly, was that Razer? I think it was Razer did the OSVR down the bottom left-hand corner. Yeah, and lots of different ones. I mean, obviously the Go's not around anymore, which is quite prominent here in the early days, because that was the only way to do portable VR, really, wasn't it? It was just to strap a mobile phone into a box.
Yeah,
sadly,
I mean, that was kind of a boon and a curse to the nausea discussion. You know, when we're doing events now, and it's like, have you tried VR? And people's usual response is, yeah, it made me feel sick. And I was like, well, was it a roller coaster app in a Google Cardboard? And they're like, yeah. And it's like, well, you know, does a roller coaster in real life make you feel sick? And I'm like, well, yeah. And it's like, well, so it's kind of working. But, you know, the cardboard was great for the enabling access to developers to play around. But yeah, going back to that McDonald's experience with 360 phones, we had Gear VRs and low 6s or S7s, but they got so hot, you know, when we were charging them, we had to keep them in the fridge, so they would actually work for more than 20 minutes, you know, on the actual site. But you know, 3DOF 360, but you know, still a great form of content when done well.
Yeah, even watching 2D video in like cinema screens and stuff is a very cool way to watch a movie, right? Especially 3D movies that you know didn't succeed at all on normal TV but look great in VR. It's quite interesting. There's a few other standouts here. Obviously the Vive. I don't think that's the. Oh no, it probably is. It's probably the first pre you've got on this picture. Standout probably story there.
No, that's the VK1. That one with the.
So, but you must have had the earlier one because you were at the same event as I was at, where Valve came to the UK and showed a select few of us the. I mean, that was quite a mind blowing day. Tell me about that day.
Yeah, that day was fantastic. That was that EGX Resd?
Yeah, I think so. EGX Resd in one year or another.
Valve had to pop up and the special room downstairs where you could get a select invite to go and try out the Vive for the first time. And I remember putting the headset on, having done a lot of Rift dev at the time and being used to fairly sat down and, you know, one sensor at a time. That first initial sort of freedom of movement was truly mind blowing. And the early demo just had like a white space with a load of hexagonal sort of giant's causeway. As you moved around, they went down, you sort of like blocks. And then they launched me into the blue, and that's when I first had my like proper experience of presence, of truly believing I was somewhere else, standing on the edge of that the bow of the ship and just trying to will myself to step over the edge, knowing it was fake. But
I think I did the same thing.
No, I'm not moving.
Were they asking you? I mean, I did pretty much the same thing. It was like, because it was so, oh my gosh, I'm in this, yeah, like say presence. Were they prompting us to do that? Or was it just naturally that as people we'd try and walk off the boat?
I think probably, you know, because we were used to VR and we were used to boundaries and sort of going through different dimensions, etc. I think, you know, we would have been more likely to try and do that.
Yeah.
But then, never say never. Videos of Rich's plank experience of people actually physically swan diving off the end,
diving off the end
onto the floor. Which...
my little one loves doing that. I put her in VR. She loves the plank game, and she loves just trying to jump off the end. She loves it. Yeah, and well, this amazing day.
And then,
right?
yeah, the last thing was and then tilt brush, and then just being able to draw and then walk through your drawings. And I'm no artist, not really creative. I am of the mindset where give me a blank canvas and it'll be fairly obvious to be the first thing that I'll draw. But obviously seeing tilt brush and what some of the amazing artists create, like VR Rosie today, is just like absolutely staggering.
I had the pleasure of a really. I had I had the earlier one than the one you've got in this picture as well. I had this. It came in the. It didn't even work the day I got it. I unpacked it all. I think I did an unpacking video of it, but none of the drivers worked. The USB drivers didn't connect. It took them a week or two just to get everything in a place where it even worked. But I happened the day I first did it. I sort of pushed the sofas in the lounge back against the wall, and I happened to have a couple of friends with me that day. I said, "Oh, come and see this new VR thing," and one of them was Pedro, who is the character designer for Batman in I don't know what Rockstar. Is it Rockstar that does Batman? Anyway, he's the character designer of Batman. We're playing on Tilt Bush, and I'm Rocksteady. That's it, Rocksteady. We're playing on Tilt Bush. I'm doing some basic trees and bushes and things, there's probably TTP in here. But we're doing these silly little pictures. He gets up and has a go and literally draws the Joker sat on a sofa. Like the most amazing piece of art. And we had no way to capture it. Tiltbrush didn't have save in it in the early days. So I've got a screenshot of this like incredible piece of art that he drew. Just, and it was eye-opening to, oh my gosh, this is a new medium. And he literally left so excited about prototyping characters in VR. I've never seen anybody so excited, but it's quite a day for me that day. But yeah, I mean, it's come a long way since then, hasn't it?
I've been wanting to. Yeah, very much so. I mean, sadly, doesn't exist anymore, but exists as open brush and is
Oh, that's great though. Really good of them. I have to appreciate Google here. Letting that go open source is probably the best thing they could have done for it. At least now, it's got a lot, more than a life. It's gone on. It's going to continue to grow, isn't it? So that's amazing.
And it's got multiplayer, so.
I mean, go back then, and we needed these powerful machines and all of that complexity. I'd have to have a box in the corner of the room and light boxes in the corner, and then Quest today, which pretty much does a better job at higher resolution with more tracking capability. Well, arguably, obviously, you can hide and occlude and stuff, but it's and it's what £299, and that's it. You're off. And you can, all those experiences are pretty much available in what it may be in different forms, but you could do the same things today. It's incredible, really, how far it's gone. And even today, right now, this minute, we're just looming on the launch of Space Pirate Arena. That's going to need a 10 meter by 10 meter space to play it. What do you think about that? Oh, I should have pre-said. Did you do the Dead and Buried at Oculus Connect? Arena scale demo on the Quest when they did that?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So you have got some concept of where this is
building our own. Yeah, I mean, we tried building multi-user shared space experience through the Creative XR program as part of a retelling of the H.G. Wells Time Machine. So I know quite how tricky it is to have multiple quests in the same space. And displaying each other's position effectively without any drift, etc. So, yeah, I'm searching high and low to find a 10 by 10 meter space that I can Space Pirate Arena up and running in.
I don't think you're alone.
10 by 10 meters is.
It's huge.
10 by 10 meters is more than the foot.
Yeah, I just recently went to do the Endreams made some content. I went to go and do it at the Box Park. I can't remember what the name of the company is, but it's at the Box Park in Wembley.
Zero latency.
Oh gosh, zero latency. That's it. Far Cry. So I've just done the Far Cry, number 4th on the leaderboards, by the way. Just saying. But I just did that this weekend, and even they haven't got 10 meters by 10 meters space. It's like they've got a massive, great big hall. That's all. Right. They can't even do it. So it's a bit crazy. But yeah, I've spoke to a number of streamers that are trying to get together now and find a 10 meter by 10 meter hall with reasonable light blockage, etc., just to play the game. It's quite because you can't really play it outdoors. I recently had this debate as well, but grass doesn't pick up very well, although it works depending. I mean, it depends on the weather as well, right? If the grass is moving, that's pretty bad, and concrete reflects too much, that's not a great surface for it. And anything that's in direct sunlight, the IR and the tracking doesn't work because it can't, it's on the same wavelength or it crosses the wavelength. It's a nightmare. I think the only way you're going to be able to play this is dedicated spaces, but I cannot wait to play. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so. I just in our new in the building where our new studio space is, there's 2 floors empty. So I've been talking to the building managers to get a sneak peek and measure up and see whether I can get some time in there. But I sent pics over to My Illusions. I was like, "Is this big enough?" He said, "Yeah, but there's a problem with like that massive pillar in the middle."
Well, you have to put it in the middle of the level.
I'm still hunting.
Oh my. Chris and Dirk over at My Illusions are super. I mean, they're at most events and stuff, but they're super talented individuals in themselves. Obviously from Space Pirate Trader originally. I think they've recently done a downhill snowboarding game as well, but in partnership. But yeah, they're great guys, and I wish them a lot of luck with that. It'll be interesting to see how many people play it. I mean, my gut feeling is it will be, some YouTubers that have hired a decent enough space, because most humans aren't going to be able to do this. Although I really want to. I really want to find a place where I can just go and do it whenever I want. We'll see.
I mean, I know the bane of every VR dev is you could just do this really easily, but I think ultimately they're going to have to look at some kind of dynamic
room
scale slider.
I'm surprised they can't release it with
kind of Team of God style.
Yeah, I'm surprised they can't release it with locomotion though. I mean, it wouldn't be ideal. You wouldn't be able to run around and stuff, which is obviously where it's going to show off its main thing. But yeah, it'd be pretty cool when they can get that.
Yeah.
But the fact the Quest can do 10 meter by 10 meters shows you how far that's come now as well. I mean, there's a lot of new hardware coming out, Sam. Must be excited about that. I know you've had mixed experience with AR. I'd love to know more about AR. But I think this might be a second show at this point. We've got like 7 minutes left, and we'll have to get you back and talk about AR specifically. But let's stick to VR for a minute. There's so much new hardware coming out. PSVR 2, Index 2 rumors, left, right, and center. Perhaps on the back of Steam Deck, an Index standalone, which has got to be good for the industry. And then there's all sorts of stuff that's business related. So I think you probably got a lot more experience in this than I have. But the Pico 3, the what else is there? The Vive Focus 3, is that what it's called? What's your opinion?
Yeah.
What perspective have you got on all this new exciting stuff around the corner?
Well, it all fits into 2 main tiers. You've got tethered and untethered. Tethered was always difficult for us, especially in the training side, especially if you're doing health and safety training, because most of our clients are like, we get it and we want to use it, but ultimately you're putting a blindfold on people with a massive trip hazard. It doesn't really gel very well with health and safety training. And I fully appreciate from the PC VR side of things the desire to have the super high-end graphics card driving everything and the much higher refresh rates and the use cases and the specific needs there, especially with things like the Vario XR3 and the VR3 and the super duper lovely crisp resolutions that they have for the very specific training purposes. But yeah, as soon as Quest came along, as soon as standalone was a thing, that's when our enterprise clients suddenly got very interested. So to have more options of headsets based on the XR2, the Snapdragon Qualcomm chipset, is great, because we suddenly have 3 Quest 2-esque devices, including the Quest 2 itself, that just makes it a lot easier for us to give people options in terms of how they can deploy and use it. I literally during this call, I got notification from DHL that my Pico Neo 3 Pro has just been delivered to work, which is surprisingly where I'm going after this. And I know that our Vive Focus 3 is in the post, because we need to look at that for future versions of Loco. But options are always great. People want to be able to deploy in different ways, and they have existing tool sets. They have different mobile device management systems that they can use the headsets with. So if it's cheaper, more open, or they have better warranty, or they have better specs, we have like 500-ish, I think 600-ish for the Pico. I think there's a version coming with eye tracking built in, like the Neo 2i. And then sort of down the other end, the Focus 3 is sort of 1100, but designed much more around comfort and enterprise use with swappability of interfaces and hygiene and everything else. And then that's not even thinking about Facebook announced, Facebook Connect is going to be at the end of October. Is there going to be a Quest 2? Is there going to be a Quest 3 or Quest 2 Pro? Are they going to be focusing on spectacles instead? Their first foray into smart glasses. It's this time of year that, I generally feel like a kid at Christmas most days, but this that Santa's loading up his sleigh.
Yeah, PSVR 2 probably announced in January or something, and that looks super cool and very exciting because it's basically I think it will go slightly ahead of where the Index is though, which is an amazing headset, so that's really cool, judging by what I've seen publicly. And then, I mean, you can never quite predict OC, can you? Because they always... I've been to enough that I can never guess what they're going to do on the stage. It's always something, oh, right. And so I'm looking forward to this year to see what they've been up to for sure. It's all going to be digital.
Yeah, but I'm going to miss the breakfast at iJava and hanging out in Paper Plane, and going to miss the actual community side of things.
Yeah, you're not kidding, Sam. I mean, hopefully we can get together soon. I think you'd probably be around at Develop and stuff, and that's like slightly late in the year. I have noticed that EGX and things are coming back on, so maybe there's on the horizon things are getting better, albeit slowly and cautiously.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of our latest deployments has just, and we do need to have a team visit, and it depending upon your definition of augmented reality, it is AR, which is Chaos Carts that we built for the NSYNC, who created the Crystal Maze physical installation.
Oh, awesome!
And this is augmented that attract in an empty.
Oh, you did that!
Space,
I didn't know you. You guys did that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, awesome! Well, that's epic.
I
look forward very much.
We designed the games and built all the system to them.
Well, that will be good quality then, so people can check that out soon. Right. Well, do you know what, Sam? I think we could carry on.
I believe it opened at the weekend, so.
Oh, it's open already. We can go book. Excellent. Well, there's a good tip for some people.
Yeah.
Go try out go-karting in VR because that sounds more than fun. Have you had a go on it, Sam?
Yeah, it's in Shoreditch, just off Brick Lane.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, let's wrap things up here. Sam, we're definitely having you back because there's tons and tons to talk about. We haven't even touched on AR, and there's so much there as well. But for now, that's it for the show, I think. Well, thanks you very much for joining us, Sam.
Well, lovely to hear, and thank you very much for inviting me to come on to your inaugural show. And yeah, I look forward to coming back and living up to my name of Waffle Watts some more.
Well, no, it's a pleasure to speak to you, Sam. It's nice to catch up. I'm absolutely sure that we'll get together at some point this year, or if not, early next year. How can people find you, Sam?
They can find me online, generally on Twitter. I am VR_Sam. Unfortunately, I did want to try and change that to XR at some point, but because I'm verified, I can't. And Make Real, similarly, Make Real VR, everywhere across all socials, or our website, makereal.co.uk, for some of those 100 plus immersive experiences are covered in case studies, but also a lot of thought pieces around best use cases and hygiene and everything else necessary to make VR successful.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Sam. And thanks to Steve and Anthony for joining me as co-hosts today, running the show behind the scenes. Much appreciated. And that's awesome. Well, you can find us on Roomkey,
Thanks,
YouTube,
chaps.
and your
Good
favourite
job.
pod. Yeah. They really did for a first show. I think it's gone quite smooth. Well done, everybody. Well, you can find us here on Roomkey, YouTube, and your favourite podcast provider. Subscribe and like to keep us on your radar. And if you want to host your own show or podcast, head to roomkey.co. It's free and easy to use and get going, and automatically exports your streams for you. You can also find other shows like this to enjoy. Well, that's it for this show, as I say. Thanks for joining us on the Metaverse show, and have a great week, and we'll see you on the next one.